From the period of 1870 to 1900, America's population doubled, while her city populations tripled. The Industrial Revolution, with its numerous factories and jobs, drew many Americans from rural life to city life, as well as many immigrants. Prior to 1860, no city in America had 1 million people, but by 1890, New York and Philadelphia had passed 1 million. New York, with 3.5 million people, was the second most populous city in the world next to London. The invention of the elevator allowed skyscrapers to pop up in various cities. The first 10-story building appeared in Chicago in 1885. Louis Sullivan largely contributed to the idea of the skyscraper, and soon many citizens of Chicago were living in the tall steel buildings. The Industrial Revolution also brought new methods of transportation. Aside from the railroad, electric trolleys were a new way to get around. These trolleys were common in cities where an overhead wire powered them along the tracks. They allowed Americans to commute to work, further expanding cities. Subway systems also began to emerge, originating in London but coming over to America by the turn of the century. While the main draw of cities was job opportunities, urban life in general beckoned to rural Americans. Cities offered independence for many. The diverse cities were broken into districts, categorized by a variety of things from industry, business, race, and social class. Cities also held new technology, such as indoor plumbing, electricity, and telephones. The glittering cities were also aesthetically appealing with the new architecture of bridges and skyscrapers. Department stores also came about during this time. Macy's in New York and Marshall Field's in Chicago started a trend towards purchasing, not making, one's clothing. Consumerism became more popular. An urban middle class began to emerge. Department stores also opened up job opportunities for women. Women began to seek more roles in the economy following Charlotte Perkins Gilman's book, Women in Economics. She was ahead of her time, calling for daycare centers and convenient restaurants so women could have an active role in the economy. Women's suffrage also became a more prominent issue. Immigration also changed the face of America. Between 1850 and 1880, more than 6 million immigrants arrived in America. In the 1880s alone, more than 5 million immigrants poured in. These immigrants came from Germany, Great Britain, Ireland, Italy, Croatia, China, and Poland, among other countries. While many immigrants chose to move to the country, many settled in cities, creating sections of the city devoted entirely to their ethnic groups. These areas were often poor and disease-ridden. However, life in America was almost always better than life had been in their home countries. Life in the growing American cities was not all big department stores and glittering skylines. While consumerism grew, so did the amount of waste generated. In the country, very few families threw away anything. In cities, where food and new clothes were abundant, many families threw things out. Having never had to dispose of such trash before, large piles grew as no one knew what to do with the garbage. When garbage collectors finally arose, oftentimes they were late because of the large, growing population of people who also needed their garbage collected. That wasn't the only problem the growing population created. Many cities smelled rotten from the animal feces, human feces, unwashed bodies, and uncollected garbage laying around. Water was contaminated. Overpopulated and impoverished slums emerged. These areas grew even more with the invention of the dumbbell tenement. These housing facilities had multiple floors of families crammed together, often without fresh air or light despite the air shafts on each floor. Many people lived their lives in these slums, but many managed to escape. Crime also flourished in the cities. Danger was everywhere. In 1871, a fire burned down a large portion of Chicago. 90,000 people were left without homes due to the 15,000 destroyed buildings. Cities also caused family life to suffer. Once close, large families now were forced to work long hours away from each other. They were also separated from their extended families and were often lonely. Divorce became more common. Family size also became smaller as more children meant more mouths to feed. While cities appeared to be glittering wonderlands, and oftentimes were, they also had slums. Cities were huge contradictions, especially with widening social classes. Cities held the best and worst of humanity. They housed everything from trees to skyscrapers to tenements to factories. Despite their flaws, cities helped change the face of America from a land of farmers in the country to a land of industry in the cities.